Disgusting truths about women in medieval society. Hey guys, tonight we step into the muddy, smoky world of medieval society, where women's lives were shaped by rules so harsh, you'll feel the weight of them pressing on your chest. Picture yourself trudging through a village, the air thick with the stench of livestock and unwashed bodies, as women young and old dart past, their faces etched with survival's hard lessons. You're about to uncover the disgusting truths of their daily grind, truths so gritty. You probably won't survive this without a shudder. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a medieval village. The year is somewhere around 1350, and the world around you feels like it's rigged against half its people. Women, from peasants to nobles, were bound by a web of laws, customs, and expectations that dictated every move they made. The mainstream fact is clear: medieval society was patriarchal to its core, with men holding power over land, wealth, and decisions. Women were seen as property first of their fathers, then their husbands. You're a daughter, maybe 14, and your life's path is already set. Marry, bear children, obey. No vote, no voice, no escape. Historians still argue whether this system was purely oppressive or if some women found ways to bend its rules. But the evidence leans hard toward control. A quirky tidbit: the church, that looming moral authority, preached women were the weaker vessel, prone to sin, yet expected them to be moral pillars. Ironic, right? You smirk, imagining the priest's sermon echoing through a drafty church. As you walk the village's dirt paths, you notice the women around you. There's a wife hauling water, her hands cracked from cold, and a young girl chasing a chicken, her future already bartered for a dowry. The air smells of wood smoke and sweat, and you realize survival here means playing by rules you didn't write. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how these rules turned even basic tasks into a nightmare. For now, let's focus on the big picture. Women's roles were defined by what men thought they should be. You're told your purpose is to serve, cook, clean, birth sons. If you're noble, maybe you manage a household. If you're a peasant, you're toiling in fields. Either way, stepping out of line could mean shame, punishment, or worse. You pass a market stall, where a woman haggles over a sack of grain. She's sharp, quick-witted, but you overhear a man mutter she's too bold. That's the trap: be useful, but not too strong. Be virtuous, but not too clever. You wonder how she keeps going, knowing her worth is measured by her obedience. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the grime of daily life stuff so gross. You'll thank your lucky stars for modern plumbing. The church's grip was tight, too. It taught that women's bodies were shameful, their minds inferior, yet you spot a midwife slipping through the crowd. Her knowledge whispered only among women. She's proof of something historians debate: did women carve out secret spaces of power? Maybe, but as you dodge a cart splashing mud, you feel the weight of a world built to keep women small. You're starting to see it now: the invisible chains. A woman's value was tied to her fertility, her chastity, her silence. Step outside those lines, and you're a problem. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how women navigated this mess. But first, let's linger here. You hear a mother scolding her daughter to act proper, and you can't help but chuckle. Some things haven't changed. Have they? Except back then, proper meant survival. You're not just a person, you're a cog in a machine. And the machine doesn't care if you're tired, sick, or dreaming of more. As you kick a pebble down the path, you realize this village, this life, is a stage where women played roles they didn't choose. And trust me, you'll want to hear this next part. It's where the real filth begins. You're still in that medieval village, the air heavy with the reek of manure and wood smoke, as you duck into a low, timber-framed house. The floor is packed dirt, strewn with straw that's more bugs than bedding, and you're hit with the gritty truth of domestic life for women. This is where they spent most of their days. And trust me, it's not the cozy cottage you're picturing. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how even basic chores could make you gag. But for now, let's settle into the chaos of keeping a home in a world without running water or soap. The mainstream fact is that women, whether peasant or noble, were the backbone of household management in medieval society. You're expected to cook, clean, sew, and churn butter, all while keeping the fire going and the kids alive. It's relentless, and the tools are crude. Think wooden spoons caked with grime and buckets that haven't been scrubbed in years. The quirky tidbit: people believe bathing too often weakened you, so that bucket of water you're hauling is more likely for laundry than your face. Historians still argue whether this neglect of hygiene was universal, or if some women secretly prioritized cleanliness. But the evidence points to filth as a fact of life. You smirk, imagining explaining deodorant to the woman stirring a pot of watery stew nearby. Picture the scene: you're kneeling by the hearth, the smoke stinging your eyes, trying to coax a fire from damp wood. The room's dim, lit only by a single tallow candle that smells like rancid fat. Your hands are chapped, your back aches, and you're surrounded by chores that never end. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to get into the truly disgusting details of what cleaning meant. For now, know that your home is a petri dish. The straw on the floor hides fleas, lice, and worse. You share this space with chickens, maybe a pig, and they're not house-trained. The walls are smeared with soot, and the single window, if you're lucky enough to have one, is just a hole letting in drafts and flies. You glance at the woman beside you, her apron stained with who knows what, as she kneads dough on a table that doubles as a chopping block for raw meat. Hygiene, barely a concept. Water's too precious to waste on scrubbing, and soap is a luxury most can't afford. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how women coped with this mess. But let's linger here. You're starting to itch just standing there, aren't you? That's the reality. Your bed's a sack of straw crawling with critters, and your clothes haven't been washed in weeks. A grim joke crosses your mind: medieval housework, where sweeping just means moving the dirt around. But this is no laughing matter for her. She's trapped in a cycle of labor, and stepping away risks a scolding or worse. As you haul another log to the fire, you notice the kids playing in the corner, their faces smudged with dirt. You're supposed to keep them fed, clothed, and alive, but the odds are stacked against you. Food spoils fast, and clean water is a gamble. You're not just fighting grime, you're fighting disease, hunger, and exhaustion. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're diving into the tools and tricks women used. And it's grosser than you think. For now, you catch a whiff of something foul from the corner, a chamber pot that hasn't been emptied in days. That's your job too. You chuckle darkly, wondering how anyone slept through this stench, but sleep they did, because collapsing was the only escape from a life where home was just another word for survival. The woman hums softly, a rare moment of calm, and you wonder what keeps her going. Maybe it's habit, maybe it's hope, or maybe she's just too tired to dream of more. You're starting to see the weight of her world, not just the physical filth, but the way it grinds down her spirit. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to uncover the nastiest parts of her daily grind. As you step back into the smoky haze, you realize this house isn't a refuge. It's a battlefield, and she's fighting with nothing but her hands and her will. You're back in the medieval village, the smoky air clinging to your clothes as you follow a young woman, barely 16, toward a stone church where bells toll ominously. She's about to be married, And you're about to see how weddings in this world were less about love and more about cold, hard deals. The vibe isn't romantic, it's tense, like a contract signing with extra prayers. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how these marriages locked women into lives they couldn't escape. But for now, let's stand in the crowd and watch this unfold. The mainstream fact is that marriage in medieval society was a transaction, often arranged by families to secure land, wealth, or alliances. You're a bride, maybe as young as 12, handed over to a man you barely know. Your consent optional. Your dowry, land, livestock, or coin is what seals the deal. A quirky tidbit: some brides were given morning gifts after the wedding night, like a grim bonus for surviving it. Historians still argue whether these arrangements offered women any real security or just traded one form of control for another, but the evidence screams servitude. You smirk, imagining explaining dating apps to the nervous girl clutching her veil. Picture yourself in her shoes. Your dress is heavy, scratchy wool, and the church smells of damp stone and incense. Your groom, maybe twice your age, stands stiffly, his eyes on your father's purse, not you. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the brutal expectations that come after the vows. For now, know that marriage isn't a partnership, it's a cage. You're now his property, legally bound to obey. If you're lucky, he's kind. If not, well, the church says suffering is holy. So buckle up. Your job is clear, produce heirs, manage his household, and stay silent. Step out of line, and you risk beatings, shame, or worse. You notice the crowd muttering, some approving, some jealous. A woman's value is tied to her marriageability, and you're the prize today. But the prize comes with a catch. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women tried to game this system, but let's stay here. You're handed a ring, a symbol of ownership, not love. The priest drones on about duty, and you feel the weight of it sinking in. A dark joke pops into your head: medieval marriage, where I do means I'm done. But there's no laughing when you see her trembling hands. She knows what's coming, a life where her body, her labor, even her thoughts, belong to someone else. As the ceremony ends, you follow her to a feast in a smoky hall. The food's meager bread, ale, maybe some greasy mutton, but the pressure's immense. You're expected to smile, to perform, while whispers judge your every move. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're digging into the grim reality of what wifely duties really meant. For now, you catch her stealing a glance at the door, like she's dreaming of running. But where the unmarried women were pitied or suspected of sin, so marriage was the least bad option. You're starting to feel the trap tightening. Her choices were never hers. If she's noble, she's a bargaining chip for alliances. If she's a peasant, she's labor for his farm. Either way, her dreams don't matter. You overhear a guest joking about her obedience, and you wince. The law backs him up. Husbands could correct wives with violence. As long as it wasn't excessive, you wonder how she'll survive this, knowing her worth is measured by how well she serves. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to uncover the hidden costs of saying I do. As you sip sour ale, you realize this wedding isn't a celebration, it's a transaction. And she's the currency, the music plays, but the melody feels hollow, like a lullaby for a life she didn't choose. You're still in the medieval village, the faint echo of wedding bells fading as you follow a woman, heavy with child, into a dimly lit room that smells of sweat and herbs. She's about to give birth, and you're about to witness a gamble where the stakes are life and death. The air is thick with tension, the kind that makes your stomach knot, because childbirth here is no gentle miracle. It's a battlefield. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how dangerous this moment really was. But for now, Let's stand by her side and feel the weight of what she's facing. The mainstream fact is grim childbirth was the leading cause of death for women in medieval times, with estimates suggesting up to 20% of mothers didn't survive. You're lying on a straw mattress, surrounded by midwives who know more about prayers than medicine. Infection, hemorrhage, or a baby stuck in the wrong position could end you. And there's no hospital, no anesthesia, a quirky tidbit. Some midwives use charms, like eagle feathers or holy relics, believing they'd ease the pain. Historians still argue whether these rituals gave women comfort or just false hope, but the evidence points to desperation. You smirk, imagining explaining epidurals to the woman gripping a knotted rope for dear life. Picture the scene, the room's lit by flickering candles, casting shadows on walls stained with soot. The midwives murmur, their hands rough but practiced, as they rub your belly with oil that smells faintly of rancid fat. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the gruesome risks that made every birth a roll of the dice. For now, know that you're not just fighting for your baby, you're fighting to see tomorrow. The pain is relentless, wave after wave, and the only relief is a sip of ale or a whispered prayer. You hear a scream, maybe hers, maybe yours, and the room feels smaller, the air heavier. If things go wrong, there's no surgeon, just a priest waiting to bless your soul. You glance at the tools on a rickety table iron tongs, a knife, a bowl of murky water. They're crude, unsterilized, and terrifying. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women survived against the odds. But let's stay here. You're sweating, your heart racing as the midwives urge you to push. A grim joke crosses your mind: medieval childbirth, where natural means naturally deadly. But there's no humor in her clenched jaw or the fear in her eyes. She knows the stories: neighbors who bled out, babies born still, or mothers who lingered only to die of fever days later. You wonder how she keeps going, knowing the odds are cruel. As another contraction hits, you notice a charm tied to her wrist, a scrap of cloth blessed by a local saint. Superstition is her only shield. And you can't blame her. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the brutal aftermath of birth. Win or lose. For now, you catch a whiff of something sharp: vinegar, maybe used to clean the room. It's a reminder of how little they knew about germs. If you're a peasant, you're back to work in days, hauling water or milking cows, even if you're barely standing. If you're noble, you might get a month to recover, but only if your husband allows it. Either way, childbirth isn't just a moment, it's a gauntlet that marks you forever. You hear a cry, faint but alive, and the room exhales. She's made it, for now. But the danger's not over. Infection lurks, and the baby's survival is another gamble. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see what recovery looked like in a world without sanitation. As you step back, wiping sweat from your brow, you realize this woman's strength isn't just physical. It's a defiance of a world that sees her as a vessel, not a person. The midwives wrap the baby in rough cloth, and you wonder if she'll live to see it grow. For now, she's won this round, but the next fight is already waiting. You're back in the medieval village. The faint cry of a newborn fading as you trail a woman hauling a bucket of water toward her home. The sun's barely up, but she's already drenched in sweat, her clothes stiff with grime. You're about to plunge into the revolting world of personal hygiene, or the lack of it for women in this era. The air smells of damp earth and something sour, and you're starting to realize cleanliness here is a fantasy. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how gross daily life could get. But for now, let's follow her and see what staying clean meant in a world without showers. The mainstream fact is stark medieval hygiene was abysmal, with most people bathing only a few times a year, if that. You're a woman, peasant or noble, and water's too scarce, too cold, or too heavy to haul for daily washes. Soap, made from animal fat and ash, is a rare luxury, and you're more likely to scrub with sand or nothing at all. A quirky tidbit. Some women used urine as a hair rinse, believing it kept lice at bay. Historians still argue whether this was common or just a desperate outlier, but the evidence screams neglect. You smirk, imagining pitching shampoo to the woman who's now splashing her face with water that's been sitting in a barrel for days. Picture yourself standing by a wooden tub. If you're lucky enough to have one, the water's murky, shared by the whole family, and you're last in line. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the skin-crawling details of what hygiene really looked like. For now, know that your body is a map of survival calloused hands, tangled hair, and skin that's never quite clean. You're scratching at fleas hiding in your clothes, which haven't been washed in weeks. The church doesn't help, and it preaches that vanity is a sin. So caring too much about your appearance could land you in moral trouble. You catch a whiff of yourself and wince. Body odor is just life here. You notice the woman combing her hair with a bone comb, picking out lice with grim efficiency. Her teeth are another story. Brushing isn't a thing, and you're chewing on twigs or wiping them with a cloth if you're fancy. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women dodge disease despite this filth. But let's stay here. You're starting to itch just watching her, aren't you? A dark joke pops into your head. Medieval hygiene, where fresh means you only smell like one kind of dirt. But there's no laughing when you see her rub her hands with a rag that's dirtier than her skin. Disease is a constant threat, and cleanliness could mean the difference between life and death. But the tools just aren't there. As you follow her to the river, where she kneels to rinse a stained apron, you realize water itself is a gamble. Rivers are dumping grounds for waste, human, animal, you name it. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the bizarre tricks women use to fake cleanliness. For now, you watch her dunk the cloth, stirring up silt and who knows what. If she's noble, she might have a servant heat water for a rare bath. But even then, it's a production, not a habit. You're starting to feel the weight of this world, where dirt isn't just on your skin, it's in your bones. The church says your soul matters more than your body, but try telling that to the rash creeping up your arm. You overhear a neighbor gossiping about a woman who bathes too often, like it's a scandal. Vanity, they say, invites the devil. You wonder how she keeps going, knowing even basic care could get her judged. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how women balance survival and suspicion in this grimy world. As you step back, dodging a puddle that's definitely not just water, you realize hygiene wasn't about feeling good. It was about staying alive in a world that made it nearly impossible. She shakes out the wet apron, and you catch a fleeting look of exhaustion in her eyes. Clean or not, she's got no choice but to keep moving. You're still trudging through the medieval village, the stink of the river clinging to your nose as you spot a woman adjusting a heavy, layered dress that looks more like a torture device than clothing. You're about to step into the punishing world of medieval fashion, where women's bodies were squeezed, cinched, and suffocated for the sake of beauty. The street's a muddy mess, and her skirts drag through it, but she holds her head high, as if defiance is stitched into her seams. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how painful looking proper could be. But for now, let's walk beside her and unravel the cost of style. The mainstream fact is that medieval fashion for women was about status and control, not comfort. You're laced into dresses designed to shape your body to society's ideals: tiny waist, modest curves whether you're a peasant in rough wool or a noble in silk, corsets, or their early versions, crush your ribs, and layers of fabric weigh you down like a human pack mule. A quirky tidbit: Some women padded their hips with cushions to mimic pregnancy, a bizarre trend thought to signal fertility. Historians still argue whether fashion was purely oppressive or if women used it to wield subtle influence, but the evidence leans toward suffering. You smirk, imagining pitching sweat-wicking yoga pants to the woman wincing as she adjusts her belt. Picture yourself in her dress. The bodice is so tight you can barely breathe, and the sleeves are pinned so stiffly you can't raise your arms. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the gruesome side effects of these trends. For now, know that fashion isn't just about looking good. It's about signaling your place in a world obsessed with hierarchy. If you're a peasant, your coarse tunic scratches your skin raw. If you're noble, your velvet gown is a sauna, trapping sweat and dirt against your body. Either way, you're a walking billboard for your husband's wealth or your family's honor, and the cost is your comfort. You're itching already, aren't you? You notice her shoes, thin, pointed, and useless against the mud. They pinch your toes, and every step feels like a betrayal. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how women endured this daily torment. But let's stay here. The weight of the fabric makes your back ache, and the headpiece may be a wimple or a horned veil tugs at your scalp. A grim joke crosses your mind, medieval fashion, where stunning means you're stunned you can still walk. But there's no humor in her careful steps, avoiding puddles that could ruin her hem. Appearance matters, because a stained dress could spark gossip, and gossip could ruin you. The church looms large here, preaching modesty while men ogle your silhouette. Hypocrisy? Much. As you pass a market stall, you catch a whiff of the dye used on her skirt, stale urine, because that's how they set the color. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the hidden health risks of chasing beauty. For now, you're sweating under layers that haven't been washed in weeks, because laundering delicate fabrics is a nightmare. If you're noble, you might have a maid to sew your dress tighter each morning. If you're poor, you're stuck in the same threadbare shift until it falls apart. You overhear a man compliment her grace, and you wince she's not graceful. She's surviving. Fashion wasn't a choice. It was a cage, locking you into a shape that pleased everyone but you. You wonder how she keeps going, knowing every lace and pin is a reminder of her place. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how these clothes did more than cramp her style, they could literally kill. As you dodge a cart splashing mud, you realize this isn't just about vanity, it's about power. Her body, her pain, her very breath are molded to fit a world that sees her as decoration. She adjusts her veil, and you catch a flicker of exhaustion in her eyes. Beauty here isn't freedom, it's just another chain, and she's wearing it every day. You're still weaving through the medieval village, the muddy streets buzzing with whispers, as you catch a glimpse of a woman hurrying past, her eyes darting nervously. The air feels heavier now, charged with fear, because you're stepping into the chilling world of witch hunts. The village square looms ahead, where a crowd gathers around a makeshift platform, and you sense the dread that's starting to grip women's lives. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how easily accusations could ruin someone. But for now, let's stand in the shadows and feel the panic creeping in. The mainstream fact is grim by the late medieval period. Witch hunts were gaining traction, with women overwhelmingly targeted for supposed sorcery. You're a healer, a midwife, or just a woman who's too strange, and a single rumor could land you in chains. Trials were brutal, dunking in icy rivers or searching your body for devil's marks. A quirky tidbit: some women were accused because their butter wouldn't churn, blamed on a curse rather than bad luck. Historians still argue whether these hunts were driven by religious zeal or social control, but the evidence points to women as easy scapegoats. You smirk, imagining explaining innocent until proven guilty to the mob clutching pitchforks. Picture yourself in the crowd, your heart pounding as a woman is dragged forward, her hands bound, Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the terrifying tactics used to prove guilt. For now, know that fear is your constant companion. You're taught that the devil lurks everywhere, and women, with their weaker souls, are his favorite targets. The church fuels this, preaching that your very existence tempts sin. You're careful what you say, who you look at, because a jealous neighbor or a spurned suitor could point a finger, and that's it. You're done. The woman on the platform looks like anyone. Maybe she's you. You notice the crowd's mix of fear and glee. Some shouting, others whispering prayers. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women dodge these accusations. But let's stay here. Your stomach churns as the accuser, a man, of course, claims she cursed his crops. Evidence none, just his word. A dark joke crosses your mind, medieval justice where witch just means woman I don't like. But there's no laughing when you see her trembling, knowing she might not survive the day. The tests are a sham if you float in water. You're a witch. If you sink, you're innocent, but probably dead. Either way, the deck's stacked. As the crowd jeers, you catch a whiff of burning pitch torches. Maybe a warning of what's next. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the brutal fallout of these accusations. For now, you're frozen, wondering how it came to this. If you're a healer, your herbs are now potions. If you're old and alone, your muttering is spells. The church says it's saving souls, but it feels like a purge. You overhear a woman whisper to her friend, "Don't speak to her anymore." And you realize isolation is a weapon. Being different, being outspoken, being anything but invisible could cost you everything. You wonder how she keeps her head up, knowing one slip could end her. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how fear shaped every choice women made. As you step back, avoiding the crowd's fevered eyes, you realize this isn't just about witches, it's about control. The woman's led away, and you catch a flicker of defiance in her glare. She's scared, but not broken. Not yet. Fear is a chain, but some women, you're starting to see, might just find ways to slip it, even if it costs them everything. You're still in the medieval village, the clamor of the witch hunt crowd fading as you slip through a stone archway into the shadowed quiet of a convent. The air is cool, smelling of wax and old parchment, but there's a heaviness here, a sense that this sanctuary for women comes with its own chains. You're about to uncover the grim realities of convent life, where nuns traded one set of rules for another, and freedom was just a word. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how harsh this holy life could be. But for now, let's walk these dim corridors and feel the weight of silence. The mainstream fact is that convents were often the only alternative to marriage for medieval women, especially for nobles or those deemed unmarriageable. You're a nun, maybe sent here as a child, vowing poverty, chastity, and obedience. Your days are prayer, work, and more prayer, in a world that's supposed to be sacred but feels like a prison. A quirky tidbit. Some nuns kept pet dogs, a small rebellion against the ban on personal possessions. Historians still argue whether convents empowered women with education or just controlled them under a spiritual guise, but the evidence leans toward confinement. You smirk, imagining pitching Netflix to the nun scrubbing a floor nearby. Picture yourself in a coarse wool habit, the fabric itching your skin as you kneel on cold stone for the third prayer of the day. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the grueling routines that broke bodies and spirits. For now, know that this life isn't the peaceful retreat you might imagine. You're cut off from the world, your hair shorn, your name replaced with sister. The convent's walls are thick, but they don't block the chill or the hunger. Food is meager bread, thin soup, maybe a scrap of cheese on feast days. You're fasting half the time because suffering, they say, brings you closer to God. Your hands are raw from scrubbing, gardening, or copying manuscripts by candlelight. You notice a young nun, barely 15, her eyes hollow as she chants psalms. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some nuns found ways to resist. But let's stay here. The bell tolls, calling you to another service, and your knees ache from hours on the floor. A dark joke crosses your mind: convent life, where eternal peace means eternal exhaustion. But there's no humor in her trembling hands. Clutching a rosary, the abbess watches like a hawk, and disobedience could mean a whipping or a stint in a dark cell. You're told this is freedom from worldly sin, but it feels like trading one master husband or father for another, the church. As you pass the scriptorium, you catch a whiff of ink and vellum, a reminder that some nuns read and wrote. A rare privilege. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the hidden costs of this sacred life. For now, you're struck by the silence, broken only by footsteps and prayers. If you're here by choice, maybe you sought refuge from a brutal marriage. If not, you were likely dumped here, a daughter too costly to marry off. Either way, your life's not yours. You overhear a whispered rumor about a nun caught sneaking letters to a lover, scandalous and dangerous. Love, even a hint of it, could get you locked away. You wonder how she keeps going, knowing every step is watched, every thought judged. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women bent these rigid rules. As you trace a finger along the cold stone wall, you realize this convent isn't a haven, it's a fortress, built to keep women in line. The young nun glances at you, her face a mask of duty, but her eyes flicker with something else: defiance. Maybe, or just a dream of a life she'll never have. For now, she kneels, and you do too. Because in this world, obedience is survival. You're back in the medieval village, leaving the convent's stone walls behind as you trail a woman trudging through a field, her back bent under the weight of a basket overflowing with turnips. The sun beats down, and the air smells of earth and sweat, pulling you into the grueling world of peasant women's labor. This isn't the romantic pastoral scene you might picture. It's a relentless grind that breaks bodies and spirits. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how brutal these daily tasks were. But for now, let's follow her through the mud and feel the ache of her life. The mainstream fact is clear: peasant women, who made up most of the medieval population, worked from dawn to dusk alongside men, handling tasks vital to survival. You're sowing seeds, milking cows, or hauling water, your hands blistered and your muscles screaming. Unlike men, you're also expected to cook, sew, and raise children, doubling your burden. A quirky tidbit: some women used moonlight shifts, working fields at night during harvest season to avoid heat stroke. Historians still argue whether this relentless labor gave peasant women any real autonomy, or just chained them to endless toil. But the evidence leans toward exhaustion. You smirk, imagining pitching a 9-to-5 job to the woman wiping sweat from her brow. Picture yourself in her worn shoes, the ground uneven and slick with mud. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the backbreaking details of her workday. For now, know that your life is a cycle of labor with no end. You're up before dawn, feeding chickens that peck at your feet, then heading to the fields with a sickle that's duller than it should be. Your dress is patched, heavy with dirt, and you're scratching at fleas between tasks. The harvest decides if your family eats or starves, and you're carrying that weight literally. Your basket straps dig into your shoulders, and every step feels like a negotiation with your spine. You notice a group of women nearby, their chatter drowned by the creak of a cart. In 3 minutes, A mystery unfolds about how they found moments of joy in this grind. But let's stay here. Your hands sting as you pull weeds, and the sun's burning your neck. A grim joke crosses your mind, peasant life, where retirement means you're too broken to work. But there's no humor in her grimace as she lifts another load. You're not just fighting the earth, you're fighting hunger, weather, and a lord who takes half your crop. If you're lucky, you get a sip of watery ale at midday, but rest, that's for the dead. As you pass a stream, you catch a whiff of the animals you tend: cows, pigs, goats, all crammed into a yard by your hut. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the toll this work took on women's bodies. For now, you are hauling water from that stream, the bucket sloshing and soaking your hem. If you're pregnant, injured, or sick, too bad you work anyway. The church says your labor is God's will, but it feels like punishment. You overhear a woman curse under her breath as her sickle slips, and you wonder how she keeps going. Solidarity, maybe, or just no choice. You're starting to feel the rhythm of her day, each task bleeding into the next. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how this toil shaped more than just the fields. As you wipe dirt from your hands, you realize this isn't just work. It's survival in a world that demands everything from her and gives nothing back. She pauses, stretching her back, and you catch a flicker of resilience in her eyes. She's not just a laborer, she's a fighter, carving out life from a world that tries to grind her down. For now, you keep pace, because stopping isn't an option. You've left the fields behind, stepping into the polished stone halls of a castle where a noblewoman glides past, her silk gown whispering against the floor. The air smells of beeswax and lavender, a stark contrast to the village's muck. But you're about to discover that her life, though gilded, is just another kind of cage. You're diving into the world of noble ladies, where privilege comes with invisible bars. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how trapped these women really were. But for now, let's follow her through these opulent rooms and feel the weight of her constraints. The mainstream fact is that noble women in medieval society were pawns in political games, their marriages and lives orchestrated to secure alliances or wealth. You're a lady, maybe 20, trained to embroider, sing, and manage a household. But your real job is to be a symbol of your family's power. Your days are spent in gilded halls, but you're rarely free to leave or choose your path. A quirky tidbit: some noblewomen carried tiny prayer books as fashion accessories, flashing piety like a medieval status symbol. Historians still argue whether these women wielded subtle influence through their roles or were merely decorative prisoners. But the evidence leans toward control. You smirk, imagining pitching a gap year to the lady adjusting her jeweled headdress. Picture yourself in her velvet gown, heavy and hot despite the castle's chill. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the stifling rules that bound her every move. For now, know that your life is a performance. You're expected to be graceful, chaste, and obedient. Your every gesture watched by servants and suitors. Your husband, likely chosen for you, controls your wealth and decisions. If he's away, you might manage his estates. But that's duty, not power. You're surrounded by luxury tapestries, silver goblets, but it's a stage, and you're playing a role you didn't write. Your chamber smells faintly of roses, but the sweetness can't mask the tension. You notice her pause by a window, her fingers tracing the leaded glass. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some noblewomen bent their gilded bars. But let's stay here. Your days are long, filled with needlework, prayer, and hosting guests who judge your every word. A dark joke crosses your mind: noble life, where your cage has better cushions. But there's no humor in her tight smile as she greets a lord who's here to negotiate your daughter's betrothal. The church reinforces your place, preaching that your virtue upholds the family's honor. Step out of line, flirt, argue, or worse, and you risk scandal, banishment, or a convent's walls. Your body, your womb, your very thoughts are assets to be managed. As you follow her to a banquet hall, you catch a whiff of spice wine and roasted meat. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the hidden costs of her polished life. For now, you are seated at a long table, your corset pinching as you smile through small talk. If you're widowed, you might gain some control, but only if you dodge remarriage. If you're childless, you're a failure, no matter your wit or grace. You overhear a servant whisper about a lady who disgraced her house, and you realize how fragile your position is. One misstep, and the castle's walls could close in tighter. You wonder how she keeps her poise, knowing her life's a chessboard for men's ambitions, ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women played the game anyway. As you sip from a goblet, you realize this isn't freedom. It's a prettier kind of servitude. She glances at a lute player, her eyes lingering a moment too long, and you catch a spark of something desire, maybe, or just a dream of a life where she's more than a pawn. For now, she turns back to her guests, her smile a perfect mask, because in this world, survival means playing the part. You're still in the castle's grand halls, the noblewoman's silk gown fading into memory as you follow a woman limping toward a low-ceilinged room that reeks of vinegar and charred herbs. She's here for treatment, and you're about to plunge into the horrifying world of medieval medicine, where women faced remedies as dangerous as their ailments. The air is thick with a sour tang, and the flickering light of a single candle makes the scene feel more like a ritual than healing. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how gruesome these cures could be. But for now, let's stand by her side and brace for what's coming. The mainstream fact is chilling medieval medicine was a mix of guesswork, superstition, and brute force, with women often subjected to treatments that did more harm than good. You're a patient, maybe suffering from fever or a childbirth complication, and your doctor, likely a barber or a monk, relies on outdated texts or folklore. Bleeding, purging, or burning were standard, and hygiene was an afterthought, a quirky tidbit. Some women were prescribed concoctions of crushed snails or spiderwebs to balance their humors. Historians still argue whether these treatments were genuinely believed. You smirk, imagining explaining antibiotics to the healer, stirring a pot of something that smells like death itself. Picture yourself lying on a wooden table, your skin clammy as the healer mutters prayers over a rusty knife. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the stomach-churning details of what passed for care. For now, know that pain is your only certainty. If you're bleeding, they might slice your arm to release bad blood. If you're feverish, they'll drape you in damp cloths or feed you moldy bread, hoping it fights infection. The room's damp, the straw beneath you crawling with fleas, and you're praying the cure doesn't kill you faster than the disease. You catch a glimpse of a jar filled with leeches, and your stomach turns. You notice the woman's hands trembling as she grips a cloth, her face pale but resigned. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women became healers themselves. But let's stay here. The healer applies a poultice that burns your skin, and you bite back a scream. A grim joke crosses your mind, medieval medicine where the cure's worse than the curse. But there's no humor in her shallow breaths, or the way she flinches at his touch. If you're pregnant or menstruating, they might blame your wandering womb for everything from headaches to hysteria. The church looms large, warning that illness is God's punishment, so you're half convinced you deserve this. As the healer pulls out a vial of something murky, you catch a whiff of decay, maybe animal dung, a remedy for infection. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the brutal toll these treatments took. For now, you're trapped in a body that's both battlefield and burden. If you're a peasant, you're lucky to see a healer at all. Most just pray and die. If you're noble, you might get a physician, but his Latin chants won't save you. You overhear the healer mutter about female weakness, and you realize your gender makes you a problem to be fixed, not a person to be healed. You wonder how she endures, knowing each cure is a roll of the dice, ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women turn the tables on this nightmare. As you grit your teeth through another wave of pain, you realize this isn't care, it's a gamble with your life as the stake. She meets your eyes, a flicker of fear and defiance in hers, and you sense she's fighting not just sickness, but a world that sees her body as a puzzle it can't solve. For now, you lie still, because moving might make it worse. You're still in the medieval village, the sharp sting of the healer's poultice fading as you follow a woman weaving through a bustling market, her eyes scanning for a scrap of opportunity. You're about to step into the frustrating world where education was a locked door for most women, their minds starved by a society that valued their labor over their intellect. The air smells of fresh bread and sweat. But there's a tension here, a sense of potential squashed before it can bloom. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how tightly knowledge was guarded. But for now, let's walk beside her and feel the weight of a world that says your mind doesn't matter. The mainstream fact is stark formal education in medieval times was almost exclusively for men, with women, especially peasants, denied access to schools or literacy. You're a woman, maybe 25, and your education is practical sewing, cooking, or tending livestock. If you're noble, you might learn to read a prayer book, but anything more is suspicious. A quirky tidbit. Some women memorized epic poems or herbal remedies, passing them orally because writing was a man's domain. Historians still argue whether this oral tradition was a form of empowerment or just a workaround for exclusion, but the evidence screams restriction. You smirk, imagining pitching a library card to the woman haggling over a basket of eggs. Picture yourself in the market, your hands rough from work, your mind hungry for something beyond chores. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the maddening barriers that kept women ignorant. For now, know that knowledge is power, and power isn't meant for you. The church, that ever-present shadow, teaches that women's minds are weak, prone to sin if left unchecked. You're expected to be virtuous, not curious. If you ask too many questions, you're unnatural or worse, a heretic. You spot a boy scurrying to a cathedral school, his wax tablet tucked under his arm, and you feel a pang. Why not you? You notice her pause by a scribe's stall, her fingers brushing a scrap of parchment she can't read. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women stole scraps of learning. But let's stay here. Your world is oral songs, stories, gossip, but writing is a gatekeeper you can't pass. A dark joke crosses your mind, medieval education where stay in your lane means stay in the dark. But there's no humor in her quick glance away, like she's ashamed to linger. If you're a peasant, your days are too full of toil for learning. If you're noble, your tutor might teach you Latin prayers. But philosophy or law, that's for men. The church says your soul needs saving, not your intellect. As you dodge a cart piled with cabbages, you catch a whiff of ink from the scribe's quill, a reminder of a world closed to you. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the rare women who broke through. For now, you're surrounded by voices merchants, preachers, children, but none teach you what you crave. You overhear a man scoff at a woman who dared question a sermon, calling her overbold. You realize curiosity is a risk, a spark that could burn you. If you're caught with a book, you're either rich or reckless, and either way, you're watched. Your mind is a garden, but they've locked the gate and thrown away the key. You wonder how she keeps that spark alive, knowing it's safer to stay silent. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women smuggled knowledge anyway. As you step over a puddle, you realize this isn't just about reading. It's about a world that fears what you could become if you knew more. She tucks a sprig of rosemary in her apron, maybe a remedy she learned from her mother, and you catch a flicker of pride in her eyes. She's not schooled, but she's not empty. Not yet. For now, you keep walking, because in this world, even dreaming of more is a quiet act of rebellion. You're still weaving through the medieval village, the market's clamor fading as you follow a woman hurrying down a narrow alley, her head low as whispers trail her like shadows. You're stepping into the brutal world of adultery accusations, where women face punishments so severe they could shatter lives in an instant. The air feels thick with judgment, the kind that makes your skin prickle, because a single rumor could turn you into an outcast, or worse. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how vicious these penalties were. But for now, let's stay close to her and feel the weight of a world that polices her every glance. The mainstream fact is harsh in medieval society. Adultery was a grave sin and crime, but women bore the brunt of the blame and punishment. You're a wife, maybe 30, and even a hint of infidelity, real or invented, could lead to public shame, physical mutilation, or death. Men faced lighter consequences, if any, because the law and church saw your body as their property. A quirky tidbit: some communities force accused women to wear shame masks, iron cages locked around their heads to mark their disgrace. Historians still argue whether these punishments were about morality or controlling women's sexuality, but the evidence screams double standards. You smirk, imagining explaining equal justice to the crowd gathering in the square. Picture yourself in her shoes, your heart pounding as you hear your name hissed in the marketplace. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the gruesome rituals of public humiliation. For now, know that your life hangs on your reputation. The church preaches that your chastity is your worth, and any slip, proven or not, makes you a sinner, a criminal, a stain. If your husband accuses you, or a neighbor spreads a rumor, you're guilty until proven innocent, and proof is hard to come by. You're avoiding eye contact, because a smile at the wrong man could be twisted into evidence. The square ahead is set for a spectacle, and you pray it's not for you. Or you notice her clutch her shawl tighter, her steps quickening as she passes a group of men leering from a tavern. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women survive these accusations. But let's stay here. Your stomach churns as you see a woman tied to a post, her hair shorn, her face streaked with tears. A dark joke crosses your mind, medieval justice, where he said, "She said" means she suffers. But there's no humor in the crowd's jeers, or the way she flinches at their taunts. If you're lucky, you're only flogged or paraded through town. If not, you could face drowning, burning, or having your nose slit a mark to warn others. The church calls it purification. You call it cruelty. As you pass a cart of rotting vegetables, you catch a whiff of the filth they'll throw at her. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the devastating aftermath of these punishments. For now, you're gripping your own shawl, wondering who's watching you. If you're noble, you might be locked in a tower or sent to a convent. If you're a peasant, you're at the mob's mercy. You overhear a priest preaching about fallen women, and you realize the rules are rigged: men stray, women pay. Your husband could beat you legally for dishonor, and society would nod. You're not just fighting gossip, you're fighting a system that sees your body as a battlefield. You wonder how she keeps moving, knowing one whisper could end her. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women dodged or defied this fate. As you slip past the square, avoiding the crowd's fevered eyes, you realize this isn't about sin, it's about power. She glances back, her face a mix of fear and defiance, and you sense she's not just a victim. She's navigating a maze of lies and looks, and for now, she's still walking. But the alley feels narrower, the whispers louder, and you know survival here means staying one step ahead of the mob. You're still in the medieval village, the jeers of the mob fading as you follow a woman, her gray hair peeking from a worn shawl, as she moves cautiously through a marketplace buzzing with gossip. You're stepping into the precarious world of widows, where a fragile kind of freedom comes with risks that could snatch it away in a heartbeat. The air smells of damp wool and baked bread, but there's an undercurrent of suspicion, like every eye is weighing her worth. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how vulnerable widowhood could be. But for now, let's walk beside her and feel the tightrope she's balancing on. The mainstream fact is that widowhood offered medieval women a rare chance at independence, but it was a double-edged sword. You're a widow, maybe 40, and for the first time. You might control your property or business if your husband's will allows it, but society sees you as a loose end, a woman without a man's guidance, and that makes you a target, a quirky tidbit. Some widows wore weeds, dark veils that signaled their status, but also marked them as fair game for suitors or swindlers. Historians still argue whether widowhood empowered women or exposed them to new dangers, but the evidence leans toward a precarious tightrope. You smirk, imagining pitching a retirement plan to the woman bartering a sack of grain. Picture yourself in her place, your hands steady but your heart wary as you haggle with a merchant. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the threats that stalked widows daily. For now, know that freedom isn't free. If you're a peasant, you're scrambling to keep your land from greedy lords or relatives. If you're noble, you're dodging pressure to remarry, because your wealth makes you a prize. The church urges you to be chaste, maybe join a convent, but you're not ready to trade one cage for another. You're counting coins, knowing one bad deal could leave you begging. The market's noise feels like a spotlight, and you're trying not to stand out. You notice her glance over her shoulder, as if expecting trouble. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some widows thrived against the odds. But let's stay here. Your back aches from years of labor, and your shawl hides scars from a life you've outlived. A dark joke crosses your mind: widowhood, where independence means everyone's watching you fail. But there's no humor in her tense jaw or the way she grips her basket. You're a threat now, too free, too alone. Neighbors whisper you might tempt men or hoard wealth that belongs to the community. If you're too successful, you're unnatural. If you're too poor, you're a burden. Either way, you're walking a knife's edge. As you pass a tavern, you catch a whiff of sour ale and overhear a man joking about wooing the widow for her land. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the strategies widows use to survive. For now, you're dodging offers of protection from men who see you as prey. The law might let you inherit, but it won't shield you from lawsuits or violence. You're managing a small plot or a trade, maybe weaving or brewing, but every step feels like a gamble. The church says your role is to pray for your husband's soul, but you're too busy keeping your own alive. You overhear a woman warn another to watch her back, and you realize solitude is both your strength and your danger. You wonder how she keeps going, knowing every choice could tip her into ruin. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some widows turn the tables. As you step past a cart, you realize this isn't just about survival. It's about outsmarting a world that wants you tamed. She pauses to adjust her shawl, and you catch a flicker of cunning in her eyes. She's not just a widow, she's a strategist, playing a game where the rules are stacked against her. For now, she keeps moving, because in this world, standing still means sinking. You're still in the medieval village, the widow's cautious steps fading as you duck into a smoky tavern where the air reeks of stale ale and sweat. Laughter and slurred songs spill from wooden benches, and you're about to plunge into the rowdy, risky world of tavern life, where women walked a dangerous line between survival and scandal. The flickering firelight casts long shadows, and you feel the weight of eyes on the women serving, dancing, or just passing through. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how perilous this space could be. But for now, let's linger in the haze and sense the temptation and trouble brewing. The mainstream fact is that taverns were social hubs in medieval society, but for women, they were minefields of opportunity and ruin. You're a serving girl, maybe 18 pouring ale for rowdy men, or a traveler seeking a meal, but your presence here makes you suspect. Taverns offered work or refuge, but they also invited gossip and worse, a quirky tidbit. Some women brewed ale at home, a respected trade, but selling it in taverns branded them as loose. Historians still argue whether taverns gave women economic freedom or just exposed them to exploitation, but the evidence leans toward danger. You smirk, imagining pitching a coffee shop vibe to the woman dodging a drunkard's grab. Picture yourself balancing a tray of sloshing mugs, your apron stained, your feet aching from hours on the dirt floor. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the chaotic risks of this world. For now, know that every smile, every word, is a gamble. The church preaches that good women stay home, so you're already guilty by being here. Men leer, their hands wandering, and saying no could cost you your job or spark a fight. If you're a widow or a single woman, you might run the tavern, but that makes you a target for thieves or suitors after your coin. The air's thick with smoke, and you're coughing, but stopping isn't an option. You notice a woman at the bar, her laugh loud but her eyes wary. As she refills a tankard, in 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women thrived in this chaos. But let's stay here. Your heart races as a man slams his fist on the table, demanding more ale. A dark joke crosses your mind, tavern life, where happy hour means you're happy to survive it. But there's no humor in her quick step back, or the way she scans the room for trouble. If you're caught alone with a man, even by accident, gossip could ruin you. The church calls you a temptress. The law might call you a whore. Either way, you're walking a tightrope over a pit of judgment. As you weave through the crowd, you catch a whiff of something rancid spilled ale mixed with vomit in the corner. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the hidden costs of tavern work. For now, you're dodging hands and insults, your ears ringing with bawdy songs. If you're a performer, singing for coins, one wrong lyric could brand you a heretic. If you're just here for a meal, you're still not safe. Lone women attract trouble. You overhear a man boast about taming a barmaid, and you realize the rules are rigged. Your body, your labor, even your laugh are fair game in a place where men hold the power. You wonder how she keeps her wits, knowing one slip could cost her everything. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women turn this den of danger into a stage for survival. As you wipe sweat from your brow, you realize this tavern isn't just a place, it's a battlefield, where women fight for scraps of independence in a world that wants them meek. She flashes a quick smile at a customer, but her hand hovers near a knife tucked in her apron. She's not just serving ale, she's playing a game. And for now, she's still in it. You're slipping out of the tavern's raucous haze, the tang of ale still on the air as you follow a woman through the village. Her basket heavy with herbs and charms. You're stepping into the strange, suffocating world of superstitions that ruled women's lives, where every action, from baking bread to birthing a child, was shadowed by bizarre beliefs. The twilight sky feels watchful, and the rustle of leaves carries a hint of unease, as if the world itself is judging her. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how deeply these fears controlled her every move. But for now, Let's keep pace and sense the invisible threads binding her. The mainstream fact is that medieval society was steeped in superstition, with women often blamed for bad luck or supernatural mischief. You're a mother, a healer, or just a woman crossing the street, and you're dodging rituals and taboos to avoid being labeled a witch or curse bringer. Spilling salt, breaking a mirror, or even sneezing could invite disaster, and you're expected to know the charms to counter it. A quirky tidbit: some women tied red thread around their wrist to ward off the evil eye, a practice half mocked but never ignored. Historians still argue whether these beliefs empowered women as keepers of folklore or just tightened their chains. But the evidence leans toward fear. You smirk, imagining pitching a science textbook to the woman muttering a prayer over her doorstep. Picture yourself in her patched dress, your fingers clutching a sprig of rosemary for protection as you pass a neighbor's house. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the wild rituals that shaped her days. For now, know that superstition isn't just a quirk, it's a cage. The church preaches that God controls fate, but everyone still fears your shadow on a full moon. If your cow's milk sours, you're blamed for cursing it. If a baby dies, your glance might be the culprit. You're careful to bless every loaf you bake, because forgetting could spark whispers. The village feels like a stage, and you're playing a part where one wrong step means ruin. You notice her pause to toss a pinch of salt over her shoulder, her lips moving silently. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women use these beliefs to their advantage. But let's stay here. Your heart skips as a black cat darts across your path, and you spit to undo the hex. A dark joke crosses your mind: medieval life, where you're one sneeze away from a witch trial. But there's no humor in her tense grip on her basket, or the way she avoids a cracked stone in the path. If you're a midwife, your herbs are both medicine and menace too many cures. And you're unnatural. The church says trust in God, but you're still bearing a nail under your threshold to keep spirits out. As you pass a well, you catch a whiff of damp moss and something bitter, maybe an offering tossed in for luck. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the strange ways women navigated this web of fear. For now, you're tying a knot in your apron, a charm against barrenness, because even your body's under suspicion. If you're childless, you're cursed. If you're too fertile, you're tempting sin. You overhear a woman warn her daughter not to sweep at night, lest she sweep out good fortune, and you realize these rules are everywhere, invisible but ironclad. You're not just living, you're surviving a maze of myths that could trap you at any turn. You wonder how she keeps her nerve, knowing one misstep could brand her a sorceress. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women turn superstition into a shield. As you step over a line of ash sprinkled by her door, you realize this isn't just fear, it's a system. Keeping women small by making them doubt their every move. She glances at the darkening sky, her face a mix of habit and defiance. And you sense she's not just following rules, she's bending them, just enough to keep going. For now, you walk on, because in this world, every step is a quiet battle against the unseen. You're still threading through the medieval village, the weight of superstition lingering as you follow a woman slipping into her small, smoky home, her movements careful, as if every gesture carries a hidden cost. You're about to confront the infuriating double standards that governed women's sexuality, where the rules were rigged to shame and control. The air smells of wood smoke and damp straw, and there's a quiet tension, like the village itself is holding its breath, waiting for her to slip. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how unfairly these rules crushed women, but for now, let's step inside and feel the invisible chains tightening around her. The mainstream fact is stark medieval society enforced strict sexual norms, but women face far harsher judgment than men for any perceived misconduct. You're a wife, a maiden, or a widow, and your chastity is your currency, lose it, or even seem to, and you're ruined. Men could stray with a wink and a fine, but for you, a rumor of impropriety could mean public disgrace or worse. A quirky tidbit: some women wore chastity belts. Pipels. Historians still argue whether these double standards were purely about control or tied to economic concerns like inheritance. But the evidence screams misogyny. You smirk, imagining pitching a dating app to the woman stirring a pot, her eyes darting to the door. Picture yourself in her cramped home, your hands busy with dough, but your mind on guard. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the infuriating ways these rules shaped every interaction. For now, know that your body isn't yours. It's a commodity, owned by your father, husband, or community. If you're unmarried and flirt, you're a temptress. If you're married and barren, you're a failure. The church preaches purity, but men's lapses are shrugged off, while yours are sins etched in stone. You're avoiding the baker's too friendly smile, because a laugh could spark gossip that burns your life down. The air feels heavy, like judgments baked into the walls. You notice her keep her daughter close, teaching her to lower her eyes around men. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how women navigated this minefield. But let's stay here. Your heart skips when a neighbor knocks, his voice too loud, too familiar. A dark joke crosses your mind, medieval romance where courtship means consequences for her. But there's no humor in her quick glance at the window, checking for watchers. If you're accused of adultery, proof is optional gossips enough to drag you to a shaming post. Men might pay a fine for a dalliance. You could lose your home, your kids, or your life. The church says your soul is at stake, but it's your body they're policing. As you knead the dough, you catch a whiff of the herb she's burning to purify the house. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the devastating fallout of these rules. For now, you're tensing at every creak of the floorboards, knowing a man's word outweighs yours in court. If you're noble, your honor is your family's shield. If you're a peasant, it's your only asset. You overhear a woman scolding another for flaunting herself, and you realize the rules pit women against each other, too. Your sexuality isn't joy, it's a trap, and you're dodging it every day. You wonder how she keeps her spirit intact, knowing one slip could unravel everything. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women defied these chains. As you shape the bread, you realize this isn't just about sex. It's about power and who gets to wield it. She brushes a lock of hair from her face, her movements deliberate, and you catch a flicker of steel in her eyes. She's not just surviving, she's strategizing, threading a needle through a world that wants her bound. For now, you keep working, because pausing might invite the wrong kind of attention. You're still in the medieval village, the smoky warmth of the woman's home fading as you follow her out into the twilight, where she slips a small bundle of herbs to another woman with a knowing nod. You're about to uncover the quiet, defiant world of women's secret resistance, where they carved out slivers of power in a society built to keep them down. The air is cool, tinged with a scent of damp earth and pine, and there's a subtle charge, like the village is unaware of the rebellion brewing in its shadows. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how cleverly these women fought back. But for now, let's trail her through the dusk and feel the pulse of their hidden strength. The mainstream fact is that medieval women, despite oppressive constraints, found ways to resist through subtle, often invisible acts. You're a weaver, a midwife, or a wife, and while you can't openly challenge the church or law, you're bending rules in ways no one suspects, sharing knowledge, defying husbands, or manipulating traditions. You're rewriting the script in secret. A quirky tidbit: some women used cunning folk remedies, like slipping herbs into a husband's ale to calm his temper, a practice winked at but never admitted. Historians still argue whether these acts were true rebellion or just survival tactics, but the evidence leans toward defiance. You smirk, imagining pitching a protest march to the woman tucking the herbs into her apron. Picture yourself in her patched cloak, your steps soft as you pass the sleeping guard post. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the ingenious ways women subverted their chains. For now, know that resistance is your lifeline. You're not storming castles, you're whispering recipes for contraception, teaching daughters to read in secret, or forgetting to report a neighbor's minor sin. The church calls you submissive, but you're a strategist, working in the cracks of their system. You're trading tips on how to fake illness to avoid a husband's wrath. Your voice low so the walls don't hear. The night feels like an ally, cloaking your small rebellions. You notice her pause by a well, her eyes scanning for witnesses before she slips a scrap of cloth, a coded message to another woman. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how these networks grew. But let's stay here. Your heart races as you tuck a forbidden book under your bed. A gift from a nun who looked the other way. A dark joke crosses your mind, medieval rebellion, where power grab means you hid the good herbs. But there's no humor in her steady hands, or the way she moves like she's memorized every creek in the village. If you're a healer, you're passing banned remedies under the guise of prayers. If you're a wife, you're bartering favors to keep your family fed, all while smiling for the priest. As you pass a flickering torch, you catch a whiff of the lavender she's sewn into her hem, a scent to mask her fear. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're uncovering the risks these women took for their defiance. For now, you're part of a silent web, women helping women in ways men never see. You overhear a mother teach her daughter a rhyme that's really a warning about a lecherous lord, and you realize resistance isn't loud. It's woven into every day. The church says you're weak, but you're outsmarting it, one careful step at a time. If you're caught, you're a heretic or worse, but you're betting on invisibility, and so far, it's working. You wonder how she keeps her nerve, knowing discovery could mean death. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how far these rebellions reached. As you melt into the shadows, you realize this isn't just survival. It's a quiet war against a world that underestimates her. She glances back, her face a mask of calm, but her eyes burn with purpose. She's not just a woman, she's a spark, kindling a fire no one sees coming. For now, you keep moving, because in this world, every secret act is a victory. You're still in the medieval village, the flicker of the woman's quiet rebellion fading as you follow her toward a looming stone church, its bells tolling like a heartbeat over the dusk. You're about to step into the suffocating grip of religious dogma, where the church's rules clamp down on women's lives with an iron fist. The air smells of incense and damp moss. But there's a weight here, a sense that every thought and action is being judged by an invisible jury. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how deeply the church controlled women's souls and bodies. But for now, let's slip into the pews and feel the pressure of its unyielding gaze. The mainstream fact is undeniable. The medieval church was a powerhouse, shaping society's morals and laws, with women cast as both sacred vessels and sinful threats. You're a daughter, wife, or widow, and your every move is measured against sermons that paint you as Eve's heir, weak, tempting, and dangerous. Confession, prayer, and obedience are your only paths to salvation, and the church watches closely. A quirky tidbit: some women were instructed to wear veils during services to shield men from their allure. Even in God's house, historians still argue whether the church's rules gave women spiritual meaning or just tightened their leash, but the evidence leans toward control. You smirk, imagining pitching live and let live to the priest glaring from the pulpit. Picture yourself kneeling on the cold stone floor, your knees aching as the priest drones about sin. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to dive into the oppressive ways dogma shaped your life. For now, know that the church isn't just a building, it's a system, dictating your thoughts, your body, even your dreams. You're taught your worth lies in purity and submission, and any deviation, doubt, desire, or defiance could damn you. If you're a mother, your children's souls are your responsibility. If you're barren, you're cursed. You're confessing weekly, because a stray thought about the baker's smile could land you in purgatory. The incense chokes you, but you don't dare cough. You notice a woman beside you. Her hands clasp so tightly her knuckles are white. In 3 minutes, a mystery unfolds about how some women twisted dogma to their advantage. But let's stay here. Your heart skips as the priest calls out, "Wanton women," and you wonder if he means you. A dark joke crosses your mind, medieval faith, where love thy neighbor skips the ladies. But there's no humor in her downcast eyes, or the way she flinches at his voice. If you question a sermon, you're flirting with heresy. If you skip mass, you're inviting gossip. The church controls your sexuality, your labor. Even your grief widows are urged to pray, not remarry. Your body's a temple, they say, but it feels like a prison. As you pass the altar, you catch a whiff of wax from candles lit for souls you're supposed to save. Wait for this, you won't regret it. Because up next, we're uncovering the crushing toll of living under this dogma. For now, you're reciting prayers you've memorized since childhood, each word a reminder of your place. If you're a nun, you're married to Christ, but that's just another master. If you're a lay woman, you're dodging accusations of witchcraft for knowing too much about herbs. You overhear a man confess a minor sin and walk away absolved, while a woman's impure thoughts earn her a public penance. The double standards burn, but speaking out could cost you everything. You wonder how she keeps her faith, knowing it's a chain as much as a comfort. Ready for a twist in 2 minutes. We're about to see how some women found cracks in this holy armor. As you trace the carved pew, you realize this isn't just religion, it's a machine, built to keep women small. She lifts her eyes to a stained glass saint, her face a mix of duty and quiet rebellion, and you sense she's not just praying, she's planning. For now, you bow your head, because in this world, survival means playing the part. Even when it's strangling you, you're still in the medieval village, the church's heavy bells fading into a soft evening breeze as you follow a woman back to her small, flickering hearth, her hands worn but steady. You're about to reflect on the enduring strength of medieval women who survived a world stacked against them with a resilience that echoes through time. The air smells of warm bread and earth, and there's a quiet power here, a sense that her story, and countless others, refuses to be forgotten. In 2 minutes, you'll be shocked by how their legacy still shapes us. But for now, let's sit by the fire and honor the lives they carved out of hardship. The mainstream fact is inspiring. Despite the crushing constraints of medieval society, women found ways to endure, resist, and leave their mark. From queens who shaped kingdoms to peasants who fed villages, you're a mother, a healer, or a rebel, and your strength lies in the small stubborn acts that kept your world turning, raising children, sharing wisdom, defying odds. A quirky tidbit. Some women's names survive in legal records, not for crimes, but for outwitting lords over land disputes. Historians still argue whether their resilience was born of necessity or a deeper defiance, but the evidence screams survival. You smirk, imagining pitching a TED Talk on grit to the woman stoking the flames. Picture yourself in her chair, your hands warmed by the fire, your mind tracing the battles you fought against filth, fear, and a system that saw you as less. Don't skip the next part, because we're about to tie their struggles to our own. For now, know that you're part of a lineage of fighters. You've hauled water through mud, birthed children in pain, and whispered rebellion in the dark. The church called you weak, but you've outlasted sermons and witch hunts. You're the midwife who saved a life, the widow who kept her land, the nun who hid a book. The village sleeps, but your fire burns, a testament to every woman who refused to break. You notice her hum a soft tune, her eyes distant but alive with memory. In 3 minutes, we'll wind down with a gentle farewell, but let's stay here. Your heart swells as you think of her sisters queens like Eleanor of Aquitaine, who bent history, or peasants whose names we'll never know, but whose labor fed generations. A dark joke crosses your mind. Medieval women, proof you can survive anything, even a world that hates you. But there's no humor in her quiet pride or the way she sets another log on the fire. Their legacy isn't just survival, it's the art, songs, and stories they left, the cracks they made in a system that tried to crush them. As you lean closer to the hearth, you catch a whiff of the herb she's drying, rosemary, for memory. Wait for this, you won't regret it, because up next, we're fading into a soothing close. For now, you're holding the weight of their lives, from the noblewoman's gilded cage to the peasant's muddy fields. They faced witch hunts, brutal births, and rules that bound their minds, yet they wove resistance into every stitch, every loaf, every prayer. You overhear a child's laugh outside, and you realize their strength lives on in us, in the questions we ask, the freedoms we fight for. They didn't just endure, they planted seeds for a world they'd never see. You wonder how she carried on, knowing her victories were small but vital. Their legacy is a whisper in your bones, urging you to keep going. As you watch the fire's glow dance on her face, you realize this isn't just history, it's a mirror, showing us what we're capable of. She meets your gaze, her eyes fierce with a truth she's always known: she was never weak. And neither are you. For now, you rest by her side, because her story, like the fire, burns on. Now, as the fire's embers glow softer, let your shoulders sink, your breath slow. Picture the village fading into night, its thatched roofs blending with the stars. The women you've met, mothers, rebels, survivors, rest too, their hands still, their hearts steady. Their world was harsh, but they wove beauty into its cracks. Like wild flowers pushing through stone, feel the warmth of their resilience wrap around you, a quiet promise that you, too, can face any storm. The air grows still, the scent of earth and bread fainter, as their stories settle into your dreams. Let the weight of their strength carry you to sleep, a gentle tide pulling you under. You're safe here, held by the echoes of their unbreakable spirits. Close your eyes, drift, and let the night take you. Sweet dreams.